This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
The Indiana Pacers are currently at 6-9, 15 games into the season. And there's people out there in the comment section saying the Pacers need to make a change. The Pacers, they might just want to blow this whole thing up, Facci. And all of a sudden, a bombshell pops out. I believe it was on Wednesday morning after a story released that Philadelphia 76ers superstar and former MVP Joel Embiid, if he were to be traded, the team that has the best odds to land him, not the Los Angeles Lakers, not the Miami Heat, not the New York Knicks, but your Indiana Pacers. And Facci, today we're going to be talking about, should the Pacers seriously consider trading for Joel Embiid? This is a very interesting conversation that I never thought we would be having on this podcast, specifically November 21st at 8:30 p.m.
No, I never thought it. When the tweet came out, I had to double check to see if it was fake or not because I was like, where did this come from? How are the Pacers the front runner? Like, we're not used to seeing Indiana be the front runner for anybody. I know there was a time where eventually they became like the front runner for Siakam, but like even then it felt like to start they weren't. It looked like, maybe the Kings could have been that team. Atlanta was in the running, and you're just not seeing, like, used to seeing an MVP being potentially linked to the Pacers. Now the odds that were put out there for Embiid to Indiana was plus 200. So that gave them the best odds. They had the Knicks just below at plus 300, the Nets at plus 350. So it was very surprising, and I think that fans could be very split on this. Nobody is going to debate Joel Embiid's talent. It's just more of everything else that comes with if you do make that trade for him. Players you might give out, the salary that he makes, the amount of games that he might play. It all needs to be debated, but it's worth debating.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too is, like, how does he fit with this version of the Pacers, right? I mean, when I look at Joel Embiid, I think of a guy that wants to play in the half court, doesn't want to play a lot of fast pace, and wants to be kind of a post up guy, run things, through him at the nail and different options like that. But when I look at the Pacers, I think of, oh my God, this is a team that loves to run up and down the court, play a super fast pace, even though they haven't done that incredibly well this season. But like, are they going to change their complete identity? Which we've talked about. They don't even know what their identity is right now, but would they completely change their Tyrese Halliburton led identity to go out and get Joel Embiid? And I said, you know what? If they're going to play with Joel Embiid and kind of try to play this fast pace, like, hey, he might lead the league in like trailing for threes, right? Like made 3-pointers in trailing situations, kind of like a Troy Murphy 2009. But like, we don't want to utilize Joel Embiid as Troy Murphy. So like, this is where it gets really interesting. Now, to me, I think the most important part of this conversation is the health history of Joel Embiid, Facci. I'm just going to read these off to you quick here from sportsworldnews.com. From 2014 to 2016, he had a right foot injury. So basically, he underwent surgery just days before the 2014 NBA draft to address a stress fracture in his right foot, initially projected to keep him sidelined 4 to 6 months. The injury did not heal as anticipated. Consequently, he missed the 2014-15 season and the 2015-2016 season due to complications in the healing process. In 2017, he had a torn left meniscus. In 2018, he had an orbital fracture. In 2019, he had a sore left knee where he missed 14 games in the final stretch of the season. In 2020, he had a torn left hand ligament where he underwent surgery to repair a torn ligament in his left hand. He missed 9 games during that stretch. In 2021, he had a left knee bruise. In 2022, he had multiple hand injuries. And then right now, currently, is dealing once again with a left knee injury. So talk about just a guy that cannot stay healthy. I mean, he's great when he plays, but he doesn't play enough.
He doesn't. And that's the thing, is like nobody can deny his talent. You can make an argument. Might be the most offensively gifted big man the league has ever seen. From a scoring standpoint, I mean, averaging over 30, that doesn't do it justice. That's something he's done the last 3 seasons. Not counting this season, he's only played 4 games, but it's like you go back a couple years ago, 30.6 points per game, 33 points per game, nearly 35 points per game last year. Incredible stats. When he plays, he's personally destroyed the Pacers on countless times. The thing is, you got to say when he plays. And the matter of the fact is that he's only played above 65 games twice in his career. That is 65 games now, sort of unfortunately feels like the measuring stick in the NBA. It gives you like some solid buffer room, and it's something that you kind of feel like might even be part of the past for Embiid. He only played 39 games last year. The kind of start that he's off to right now, only playing 4 games, saying before the year even started he might be done playing back-to-backs. I'm sorry, but that probably shook everybody in the 76ers front office, because that is not what you want to hear from your star player. So it already feels like odds are he probably doesn't play 60 games this year, because given what he's already missed, he would have to pretty much play almost the remaining games of this season. So it's a little bit of a tough spot, but tempers and frustration is definitely flaring in Philly, and this is where you could start to see some cracks. That is this a marriage for long term, or could they potentially entertain trade offers?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what they're going to do because they're in kind of a weird spot, and I think Bobby Marks has pointed it out several times on social media, just saying like the Sixers can't do much with their roster. They're kind of stuck with what they have.
Yeah.
Paul George once again just hurt his knee with that he, suffered the injury, like the hyperextended knee, I think it was, or a knee bruise, whatever that official ruling was in the preseason. He's come back, hasn't looked great, has looked okay. He re-injured himself. He's out for a couple of games. They're kind of monitoring that as he's kind of day to day at this point. But Joel Embiid, like he's talked about it, like does not want to put pressure on that knee. He's nervous about it. He's playing a little bit timid because he doesn't want to get hurt again. And he's been heavily criticized for his play because he's been unable to get out of the Eastern Conference semifinals to make it to the conference finals. He's never once had a conference finals appearance, even though he's been a league MVP and a top 3-4 player in this league probably for the past 5 years. I think that's what consensus would probably be at, right? Like a very talented player when he's healthy, but he just cannot get there. So yeah, I mean, I can see the case where people will be like, man, you don't get an opportunity to get players that are this talented very often. And if the Pacers legitimately have a chance to do it, they should probably consider it, right? Like they should not just dismiss this right away. But at the same time, how much is it worth to throw at the Sixers to get him at this point in his career? If this were like 2020, sure, maybe, but 4 years
Maybe
later, a
2 years
lot of
ago.
wear and tear.
Maybe.
2 years ago, you said?
If it was even 2 years ago, I think you could make that argument to just be like, hey, there's a chance that this could be prime and B, like we saw 2 years ago. I think that's when he was an MVP. I'm not counting this year. I'm saying like,
Right.
back in 2022, 2023 MVP, like that man was a force to be reckoned with. Even last year when he played, you can make an argument he was even better than his MVP season. But when we're always saying, just like I said before, when and if and this and that shows that there is a problem. So, like, I know I'm kind of cutting you off a little bit, but it's just like you can make the argument if Indiana does want to win a championship. You're
Yes.
talking about one championship, even if it comes into 1 year and you pay for it afterwards. It's hard to deny if you could have a big three of Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam, and Joel Embiid. Like something like that is you could put. I mean, of course, if you get Tyrese Haliburton back to what he was, that's a big three you could put up against just about any other three in this league. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I worry about the defense a little bit. I'm not
Of
going to
course,
lie to you,
of
but
course,
because to me, like I've enjoyed watching Tyrese Maxey with the Sixers more than I have Joel Embiid. Like
definitely
I don't find Joel Embiid fun to watch.
flops left
Yes.
and right.
I mean,
Maybe
just
the
look at what he
man
did to
wasn't
Mitchell
so hurt
Robinson.
if he wasn't throwing himself all over the floor, but
Look what he did to Mitchell Robinson,
yeah, that
right?
that, that was unfortunate.
I mean, it's just I hate when guys just kind of flail around like that. I think there was even a viral video clip of him like flopping after he made a free throw or something like that, or shot a free throw. Like, what are we doing? I mean, and the stuff that came out in that players only meeting, like that's awful to me. The fact that Tyrese Maxey had to call him out for showing up late to everything, like that's just terrible leadership skills.
Can't happen from your star.
And then Joel Embiid is like mad about it and like who wants to know who the snitch is? And I'm making sure I'm not getting Sintel here, but like, he's clearly like upset and furious about this stuff getting out. And just a couple of weeks ago, the guy shoving a reporter for writing an inappropriate story about
Yeah.
his family. Like it was a terrible thing the writer wrote, but handled completely horribly by Joel Embiid. Ended up getting like a 3-game suspension, I believe it was, for his actions. And, Keith Pompey, who was a reporter for the Sixers, initially wrote that he punched him in the face. or he punched him, whatever it was, and then he changed it to shove. And I thought it was really interesting how that story just quickly shifted from punch to push. Like, I mean, Keith Pompey, like, I don't know how much I trust that guy. I mean, he's around the team a lot, so I'm not trying to dismiss him, but I don't know. That was just kind of weird that he put that out there, like, pretty, like, adamantly, like, yeah, he assaulted him. Like, what? Yeah, he punched him. Okay. Well, punch and a shove are totally different things. So,
Definitely.
regardless, like, obviously, just Joel Embiid is not in a good spot, not in a good head spot right now. And I just think overall, like, yeah, I mean, I respect Joel Embiid as a player. Like, I know he's going to give the Pacers, a hard time every time they guard him and play against him. But, like, I don't know. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I think when you're looking at pros and cons, like, to me, the biggest con is the health history. And I
Yeah,
think the amount of money it's going to take to get him, like, the players are going to have to give up to get him, you're going to completely tear your roster apart for a small window.
absolutely.
That to me is just my biggest concern. My pro, like you said, though, it's like, if he's healthy, Siakam's healthy, Halliburton's healthy, like, that gives you a window to win a championship potentially. So, I mean, I
It
get why
really.
people would be excited about that.
I know. And when you want to talk money, I want to put it in perspective. Joel Embiid is going to enter a three. So right now he's a 3-year extension. It's a 3-year, $193 million extension that doesn't even kick in for 2 more seasons. So this year he's making $51.4 million. Then next year he's making 55. Then it goes up to about 60 million, and then that contract eventually ends at about $70 million. So you're talking about you got this season and next season before that extension even kicks in.
Mm,
That's worrisome because if Embiid can't stay healthy now, 2 years from now, I'm sorry, but I don't think these things are going to be figured out. The
yeah.
sample size is large enough that yeah, you could probably get 50 good games out of him a year, most likely. You're not going to win all 50 of those games. So, whatever team takes him on, you better be ready to win a championship because that's what expectations have to become. And I think that, hey, if you're ready to push all your chips in for Joel Embiid and say, look, if this is the year they win a championship, then who cares? Okay, I could respect your decision, but just to put things in perspective from a trade standpoint, what this Pacers roster and how it's assembled is really, really tough to be able to, kind of figure this out. Because let's put in perspective, you're not going to trade Tyrese Halliburton or Pascal Siakam if you're going to get Embiid because you're looking to be all in. The drop off then becomes that Turner has to be included in the deal because other than that, the drop off after Turner it goes from about $20 million to like $11 million in Aaron Nesmith or Obi Toppin, for instance. He's not eligible to be traded yet until December 15th. So any type of deal that would include Obi has to wait until December 15th. Not a big deal. TJ McConnell, not a salary that you can include due to when he signed his extension. He's not eligible to be traded until after this trade deadline. So your major trade chips in this situation is Miles Turner, Obi Toppin, and then you start to look at like an Aaron Nesmith. There's got to be a young player in there. Obviously, they're going to want like a Benedict Mathurin. And then you start to look at from a draft pick standpoint, you already owe a 2026 first to Toronto. So you're talking a 2028 first. You might have to fork up a 2030 first. You're talking about mortgaging your whole entire future from a draft pick standpoint, as well as a guy like Benedict Mathurin, and then even just the players that you need, on an everyday basis, like a Miles Turner and Aaron Nesmith. It's a lot for a guy that you can't expect more than 50 games out of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now, and I know that you didn't mention this, specific trade, but basically the structure of it would be Turner, Top, and Neesmith, and then one of the young guys, Walker or Mathurin,
Yes, exactly.
going back to Philadelphia. I threw Walker in there just to see what it looked like. I think you could probably do that and throw in all your picks because, who knows how the fit would be with Maxey and Mathurin together, right? I get why you would probably want Mathurin over Walker just because he's more established as a player, young guy that can score. Um, but they got McCain as well. Jerry McCain is playing really well for them. They're rookie. So I think if they're going to make this trade, they're probably going to want maybe someone more in the front court that could help them long term. And that could be Jarris Walker if he does pan out. So I could see them wanting Walker. I could see them wanting Nimhard over Toppin potentially, right? And with his contract,
Yeah.
getting bigger next year. I think $18 million what it'll be next year. So there could be something where they kind of wait until the offseason and do that. But then once again, like Nimhard with Maxey, like that doesn't make a lot of sense either. So I just think you have to look at it like, okay, you get Toppin, Neesmith, Turner, Walker. That feels probably pretty good in terms of like quality players. Now it does kind of deplete the Pacers now because your backup center for Joel Embiid is Moses Brown, and you don't have any other bigs. James
Yeah.
Johnson. You have to be making a lot of signings since you're doing a 4-for-1 trade. I know this Pacers team probably wants to do a consolidation trade at some point, but like, is this a consolidation trade you want where you get rid of your entire front court, like all your wings? Like that's a lot of pressure to put on Mathurin and Ben Shepherd moving forward. So, it's one of those things where I just don't necessarily think the Pacers are in the right spot to do it now. Maybe you revisit it in the offseason if you feel like, man, this team just is so far away and the Sixers feel like they want to make a bigger move, but it's just like a lot of quality players you're gonna have to give up to get a guy like this. And I'm not afraid of doing that if it's for the right guy. Just my biggest concern is, like you said, can he play more than 50 games in a season? Probably not. So it's like, and you can't rely on him in the playoffs. He gets hurt almost every single playoff run. Like, I mean, I credit him for playing through like Bell's palsy, things like that. Like he's a warrior in terms of like playing through injuries, but like he just can't stay healthy. And I don't know. The more and more I talk about it, the less excited it gets me. And I think a lot of the fan base probably feels the same way. Like, I just don't see it with Joel Embiid. Like that's not the superstar I want the Pacers trading for.
No, it's not. And I think that it's one thing if it's like, hey, you know what? He's really unhappy in Philly, and you could bring him to Indiana, and like we've had great success with like, having players turn over a new leaf or to have like a new beginning, but like it's a health issue, which and that doesn't go away no matter where you go. And for that, like you couldn't expect that a player is just gonna become healthy when this is who they are. And there's various situations where I've gone through if you were to make a trade or anything like that, there are scenarios where like if you had to include a Turner, Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith, Benedict Mathurin, and like whatever it's first, and you're looking for players like there are players like a Adam Bona or like a Ricky Council or like you could swap in like get like an Aaron Gordon back, Eric Gordon just to like fill out the roster a little bit, but like that's not going to help out too much, and I just feel like the idea of Embiid on the Pacers would be way better than the reality of what it would be because this is a player that if you probably said who's most likely to unfortunately miss a lot of time due to injury moving forward, Joel Embiid is one of those players that might not hold up well over the next few seasons. And like I talked about, he's signed through essentially the next 5 seasons at max money. Like I'm not even talking about that Tyrese Halliburton money. I'm talking about that like $70 million a year type of money 5 years from now. That scares me.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the guy I would do it for, Foch. I mean, we've gone through lists before of players we would trade for. We've never once put Joel Embiid on that
No,
list. So I was just as baffled to see the Pacers as the front runners to land him.
stop.
Somebody asked me, they're like, how do the odds makers come up with these odds? And I'm like, I think it's just because the Pacers have a lot of contracts that can make the deal work.
I
A
think
lot
it's
of
because
young players, they got all their
Turner's going
picks
to be a free
basically.
agent. Like
What?
I think because Turner's a free agent, and they probably looked at it. Who's going to need a center? Like who's really in the market? Okay, hey, Turner could be traded. There's an opening. Like I think of it that way because like
Essentially.
yeah, like look at a team like the Knicks. Like, okay, like if you're gonna acquire a player of Joel Embiid, who are you trading? Is Cat just getting shuffled around the league? Are you then gonna trade like a Bridges who you just brought in? Like, how do you even facilitate that? So that could be a discussion for another day. But it's just and like there's no scenario where like the Brooklyn Nets are bringing in Joel Embiid and he's just gonna like go there. I mean, I feel like that's the type of guy that's like I ain't playing for Brooklyn. Like he would never win a single thing. They're horrific. So
A Ben
if
Simmons for Joel Embiid trade would be absolutely
could
hilarious
you
comedy.
imagine? Oh my God. I know. I'm sure they
What
could
what
find the salaries to make it work, but
what team do you think makes the most sense for him to go to in terms of just like a team that can make a trade like that?
it's a tough question. It's a good question, but it's a tough question because like which team now with the salary caps the way they are and the first and second apron, like who's taking that type of swing? Like I really feel like I don't know who would pony up. I mean, think about it. If you go in the
I,
East, like I mean, it's not Cleveland, it's not Boston. It's like, are we
I'm
matching?
thinking West, and the
Yeah,
first team that pops up in my head is New Orleans.
New Orleans I mean, look, they got Brandon Ingram that they've wanted to trade. Like, that's about $50 million basically or so that you could, get off the books, and that, like,
Well,
I
he's
could see it.
36 million this year, and I
Yeah.
think if they want to give up on Zion, like a Zion Brandon Ingram trade for Joel Embiid plus something to make the salaries match, and plus picks, right? Because they got a lot of picks. They got the Bucks
Yeah,
picks from
they have
the
Lakers
from
picks.
the different trades they've made, so they've got a lot of picks, and I think they could throw a lot of picks towards Philly's way. But they got a lot of contracts where they can give up somebody. I mean, I don't know. They probably would want like a Herb Jones and that kind of a deal too. So
Yeah. I mean, if you're New Orleans, like,
they've got
you
the
don't want to
pieces.
part. Yeah, you have the pieces to pull this off, but if you, once again, if you give up too much, now you're looking at look. I mean, look how hurt New Orleans is now. Like,
Yeah.
is a Dejounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Joel Embiid team like doing it? I mean, for me, it's like, ugh, that's not it.
I
So
don't know.
I
I
just
mean,
I don't
yeah,
know
I
who
mean,
the suitors
you
are.
just can't count on Zion. Brandon Ingram's tenure doesn't seem like it's going to be much longer than this
Yeah.
season. So you're not really giving up a whole lot besides Herb Jones. Like if you keep Herb Jones, Andre Murphy the third, and CJ McCollum with Dejounte Murray, like that's a pretty good five right there.
Yeah, it's a decent playoff team, but it's like,
I mean,
you know,
that's pretty good.
you make a trade for Joel Embiid, you better be ready to try and win a championship. And I just feel like that New Orleans team isn't a championship. It's a pretty good team, but like New Orleans is a small market team. We've seen them cheap out pretty much our whole lives.
Hmm.
Are they ready to really pony up for a guy like Joel, especially an injured guy after everything they went through with Zion? That might be a team that's saying, been there, kind of done that, and we have reason to be concerned.
No, I mean it's a fair point. I'm not going to disagree with that. I just think that there's a lot of intrigue potentially by maybe cashing in on, what Zion's career has become and trying to maybe right that ship. And even if it is a small window, like I mean that would make them such a dynamic team. I think people would be really excited about that. But yeah, when you look across the league, like what teams make a lot of sense for Joel Embiid, there's not a lot.
Not,
Like I think Toronto could make some sense potentially with the pieces they could
yeah,
trade to get him. Like they have pieces, right? They have picks and things like that, and you get him, paired up with a Scotty Barnes. Like, could that be fun? Emmanuel quickly, like those three together, that could be interesting to me. I'm just trying to think outside the box here, besides like the normal stuff you see, right? Like, I would not want him anywhere near Minnesota. I would not like that fit with him and Anthony Edwards, even though I think you trade some kind of combination of Gobert and Julius Randle for him. Like, okay. I think the Clippers could make a lot of sense for a trade destination place. But
or
like,
another team, you're dealing with Kawhi, who's always hurt. Like, look at what they just went through with Paul George and Kawhi. Like, I mean, Kawhi, who knows when Kawhi's even playing again? So
yeah. Well, I
it,
mean,
it's tough.
right. But like you have to envision like, okay, we're trusting that if we can get Kawhi healthy for the playoffs and Embiid for the playoffs, like can we get enough out of what else we have here? Like just imagine a James Harden reunion in Philly with Daryl Morey. Like how awesome would that be again?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Those
So
type of situations would be great. That's like a kid crying to his parents that he's just not going. Like, he's not leaving. Like, you can't make me. And it's like, you're going. But
what
you
about
know,
San Antonio with Wimby?
I mean, it's interesting, but like I said, like, you make the trade now, or all of a sudden, are you ready to win a championship? They are
I think they
absolutely,
can afford it because they have Wimby. He's so young. They
yeah,
can
but
they can try to win now early on and then still continue with his career because I mean they don't have to have him beat for that full 5 years. They can trade him again. I know people always act like, well, you never know. It's like, you can trade anybody. The league is not that hard to make trades. I know it's more difficult now with the new CBA, but I think that if the Spurs were like, hey, we can get Embiid down here next to Wimby, like they could really complement one another. You got Castle, you got Vassell. I mean, I think that could be a team that could be really interesting. I mean, that's thinking outside the box, right?
yeah, I'm thinking outside the box. I mean, someone's got to go at that point. Like,
Keldon Johnson,
people.
Harrison Barnes, picks,
Well, the picks would have to be just
all
through
your
the roof.
picks.
And even at that point, does Philly just want to start over? Like, I would like to think that you just signed Paul George to a max deal. Like, you
They
got
trade
Travis
him
Maxey
too.
on a max deal. Yeah, I know. Paul, another discussion for another day. They can't be feeling good about that signing at all. I just feel like it's off. It's been off to a pretty bad start, and he's fallen apart. Like Paul George, it's early on. He's averaging like 17 points per game. He's been hurt in like three different ways so far, and I feel like Philly is now one of the worst teams in the league record wise. And I just feel like they gotta kind of make that decision. Is like, is this going to be a lost season or not? Like, what if this is a lost season and Philly somehow ended up with like a top 2 or 3 pick? Like that's honestly probably their key to really making everything work because you could trade that pick, you could bring in a young star on a very cheap contract. Like that's something that Philly needs to think about if things continue to get really bad.
All right, Facci, I'm just going to throw this out at you because I was looking up a Spurs trade that could potentially work.
No doubt.
Joel Embiid and Adam Bana for Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Trey Jones, and Jeremy Sohan.
Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes.
Trey Jones and Jeremy Sohan.
I mean, how many picks are we talking?
You're
It's
probably
gotta be,
talking at least 4 plus
I was about to say
swaps.
at least five and that because it's like you look at this like, look, I've always had a soft spot for Keldon Johnson, no doubt about it.
Did
But
you see
like
that dunk he had the other night?
that was awesome. Yes.
Sick.
But then you look at like Harrison Barnes, like that's filler. Like, you said Castle, right? Maybe you didn't.
I didn't have Castle. No, it was Trey Jones and Jeremy
Yeah,
Sochan,
like
Sohan,
Sohan,
Sohan, whatever you want to say.
Sohan. Like good player, but like, if he's like the featured piece or Keldon Johnson's a featured piece, then it's like that's not enough for Embiid. I think you need, and you look at like what Philly was trying to get for like a James Harden. I feel like they struck out on that deal and they did not get like that type of star they wanted. But like the idea was to clear max cap space to sign a max player, and I feel like if Philly's given Daryl Morey, hard guy to deal with, if you are giving up Joel Embiid, there's got to be some incredibly promising piece in there, and I feel like that's why I felt like if the Pacers were to do it, like Matherin's got to be in there, and then all of a sudden you're looking at like, hey, could like a Maxi, Paul George, Matherin, and whatever type of group, make a run at some things. Plus, obviously you got like Turner and Neesmith. Like to me, that's a good team. Like that's a team that I feel like you could really fill out and still compete. I'm not saying you're winning a championship, but you're still in the mix of everything.
Yeah. I love looking at fake trades, seeing what could
Oh,
come up with something because everybody's going to hate your fake trades.
of course.
So that's what makes them fun. Every team's like, I'm not giving up that player for that player. Are you kidding me? I'm not giving up that guy for that guy. Well, I want that guy for that guy. I want that many picks. It's like, okay. I mean, there are some pretty bad ones, and I was just throwing out stuff that made sense salary wise. I wasn't even really diving into like all like the main structure of it. I just wanted to see like what kind of salary could work. Like, because you could take out Trey Jones and put in Stephon Castle there, and like that might be more intriguing for Philadelphia to do that. Have Castle and Maxey together long term like that. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, obviously, with what the Spurs have, I think, because they got a lot of vets that don't really matter for the future of this team. And if they wanted to make that deal. So, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. But like for the Pacers, back to this, kind of wrap it up. I just think that if they're going to make a consolidation trade, it's not for Joel Embiid. I'm still trying to think of like what players out there. Like I personally think that I would rather see them kind of make a smaller move and get like a Brandon Ingram type over Joel Embiid. I know that sounds crazy.
A smaller move, like that's still a huge.
It's a huge move, but compared to Embiid, it's not.
I know. Well, Embiid. I mean, that's the biggest.
That's what I said.
Move.
It's a smaller move.
I know, but it's only smaller in this instance.
Right.
In any other instance, that is a huge move. But yeah, like look, like I think if we were the Pacers of last year, and then you add a guy like Brandon Ingram to that offense, it's the sky is truly the limit. That statement doesn't even feel like it does justice.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like offensively, like you look at how good the Pacers were. If Brandon Ingram stepping in for Aaron Nesmith,
Yeah.
like in terms of that spot, like the scoring is through the roof.
Defensive,
yeah, brutal. So, well, what are you going to do? It's so hard to find balanced players in this league. There's always going to be something. You bring in Embiid, he's always hurt. He's going to miss time. You bring in Brandon Ingram, he's going to score a lot. Yeah, he's going to let up a lot. Like that.
well, is it going to fit the offensive style? That'd be my more of my concern. Does he play fast enough? Right.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think he would help in areas. I'm not saying he wouldn't. I just don't know if it'd be the perfect fit. But I'm thinking like somebody more like at the 3-4 spot is who I would rather go out and get. Not necessarily a 4 because you got Siakam, but more somebody at the 3 long term because I think the Pacers are just small at that spot besides Jarris Walker. And clearly he hasn't proven anything to me this season to make me feel confident about him taking that spot anytime soon. So Matherin's done a great job, but I think he's more of a 2. Neesmith has done a good job, but he's only 6'5". I think he's more of a 2. Nimhard is more of a 1. Ben Shepherd's more of a 2. So it's kind of like, you can play these guys down a position. They've done it before and they've had success, but I just think that if you can get bigger, it would make a lot more sense. But we probably overtalked what we decided we were going to do on this. So anyway, I think our verdict is both. What'd you say?
Yeah, my verdict's no. It's too
Yeah.
risky. And I mean, if Embiid was healthy this year, if he had looking healthy, that you could change my mind. He's not healthy, and all the body language and everything, it's terrible right now. That I think Indiana they would have that contract on their books, and things would. I don't know. I just don't think it would be a good move right now. This ain't it.
Yeah. Well, if he were healthy, this move wouldn't even be on the table. So
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. It's fair.
That's the only thing I'll say back to that. But anyway, it's been a fun conversation. So let us know what you guys think in the comments section below. If you made it all this way, thank you so much for listening to another episode here. We will have an episode later for you to today. If you're listening to this on Friday morning, we're gonna have another episode with Ty Windish, kind of talking Pacers, Bucks, kind of like the comparisons between the two teams in terms of like their rise from going from a team that was more of a hunter to being the hunted. We'll talk about this NBA Cup matchup, why it's so important, things like that. So you're getting 2 episodes basically for the price of 1 on your Friday. So happy Friday, everybody. And me and Facci will be back Friday night to recap Pacers, Bucks, win or loss. No YouTube video for that one, but we will have a great conversation. So with that being said, Facci, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find us at on social media quickly.
Absolutely. So you can find Alex on Twitter at AlexGoldenNBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at PacersPodSTP. You can find us on Facebook at Setting the Pace. You can find us on TikTok at Setting the Pace. Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, go to youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast where you can find all of our video content. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Leave us a thumbs up on that video so people can find our videos more. And please give us a 5-star rating and review over at the podcast app if you guys prefer it there. But Facci, with that being said, if you're up in the Pacers, right this ship and just ride it out with this group of guys instead of trading for Joel Embiid, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers!